the MS Michigan Man 64 podcast. My name is Brian Wallace, and I am the MS Michigan Man 64. The MS Michigan Man 64 podcast is about chronic disease awareness. I have had multiple sclerosis for the last 27 years. It's an invisible chronic disease that I've been battling for half of my life. I want to share with you what it is like living with the chronic disease from my experiences and the experiences of other chronic disease warriors. We can fight to have a voice to those that want to listen. Together, we can motivate and educate. Hi, and welcome back to the MS Michigan Man 64 podcast. Today, I am sitting down with a return guest. I had Trina on in episode 6. She came on and talked about her journey with her MS diagnosis in 2007, and she wanted to come back on just to talk more about what it's like living with MS. Please welcome back to the podcast, Trina. How you doing, Trina?
I am great, and thanks for having me again. I'm super excited.
I appreciate you, Trina. You know, I love talking to you. We met a while back on TikTok, and you recorded your episode 6 with me and talked about your journey. And I just love talking to you, just to spread awareness about living with this disease. Because I know you've been battling it for almost as long as me. And, you know, we just want people to understand what it's like living with this disease. And I appreciate you for coming on just to talk about this, because we need to talk about it more just so people can understand it. So I know that we were talking earlier, Trina, and you wanted to come on and talk about just a lot of the frustrations that we go through with living with this disease. I thought it was an awesome idea. I'm like, yeah, let's, game on, let's talk. So I want to ask you, like, when people are telling you, just to try harder, that's like the frustrating part that we want to get into. Let's talk a little bit about that. Like the different things that MS takes from us, and people just don't understand, and they say, well, hey, try this, try that, and then we'll just get the conversation going that way.
Okay, yeah, and that is one of the most frustrating parts about dealing with this disease. And I don't know why society just as a whole wants to kind of put the blame back on us in the way that, are we exercising enough? Are we doing enough? Are we stretching enough? Are we being active enough?
Are we eating right?
Are we eating right? Just like assuming that this is in our control.
Right.
And it's clearly not. And going back to our first episode, we did talk about cognitive and how I did taxes for 20 years and I do Sudoku puzzles. So that keeps my cognitive function sharp, I guess. And
we're hoping. I mean, let me just say, that's what we're trying, and that's what we're hoping. We're hoping. We're hoping that, you doing those puzzles are working our mind. I mean, we don't know. I mean, all we're doing is we're doing everything we can to keep everything moving and functioning to its best ability. I think that's what we're trying to say, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, just the point I wanted to make is when we look at this disease and we see someone who can't speak correctly anymore, their voices are weak, or they've lost their vision, or even they've lost their cognitive ability, we don't really look at it like they should have talked more, or they should have used their eyes more, or, even use their brain more.
Or their hearing.
Because, of course, everyone's doing yes. MS is just going to take what it wants to take at the end of the day. I mean, it is good to stay strong in every aspect of your life, as strong as you can. But at the end of the day, MS is bigger than anything we could ever do.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree with you 100%. And that is a very frustrating part of this journey,
Yeah,
is that we got family and friends that, and they love us, and we know that they love us, and we know that
yeah,
they care about us. But, so many times we hear, well, just get more exercise, that'll help. I mean,
yeah,
we know that, and we're trying. And there are people that, they want to walk, but they can't. And they lost that function in their legs. And, and it is very frustrating to keep on hearing people come up with like little tricks that they think are going to work for us, and it doesn't work that way, and that it is very frustrating.
because no one wants for us to be well more than we want to be well. So just automatically assume we're doing everything we possibly can,
Yeah,
every breath that we take
yeah,
to
absolutely.
fight this. And also, with people not being able to walk anymore, it might be not be able to walk anymore safely. I mean, we can't be breaking our bones and stuff,
Yeah,
just fighting to keep our mobility. I mean, our safety is more important.
absolutely. And that is part of this journey that is very difficult for people to maneuver around with, because you got people that are always like in the back of our mind. They're like, well, you just got to try a little bit harder, or
Yes.
here, try taking this supplement. This supplement might help you a little bit more. And we wish that it worked that way. God,
Yes.
it would be so much easier for us if it
Heck,
was that if we were just taking a little a pill, and it made us feel good. I mean, it would be so great, but it's not like that.
right. And we really just don't need to be reminded of that all the time. I mean, we're already frustrated and we already, know that there's nothing we can do. So it's just not helpful.
No, not at
Not
all.
helpful.
What would you
I
what
mean,
would
you just need
what
to.
what would you do to change that? What would you want people to do to change the way that they look at us, Trina? I mean, I think that would be a great conversation. I mean, we want them to understand us, but what would be the way that we want them to look at us, and see how we're trying?
Well, I just think come from a place where you are also assuming and understanding that I'm doing everything I can. We are doing everything we can, possibly. So, no recommendation is going to make a difference. I mean, you can't tell me about a parasite cleanse or a diet that I haven't tried, just because when you suggest something, you're just assuming that I haven't tried that. That I'm just sitting here just hoping this disease won't get bad or something, Just come from a place where you understand that we're doing everything we can, you know
Yeah,
and then you can talk about the things that you want to understand about MS. You can ask questions, but don't necessarily give treatment advice
yeah.
or even like exercise, that kind of thing, because we're doing it. I promise, we're doing everything.
Yeah, I mean, none of us asked for this disease. It wasn't like any of us woke up one day and said, hey, I think I'm going to try MS for, and see what it's like, and
Yeah,
maybe I'll live this life. And I mean,
yeah,
from day one of our diagnosis, we are in a fight or flight mode, and we are
yeah,
trying to survive every
yeah,
day. And the mental part is my biggest battle. And having people understand us is the positive part of this battle. When we got people that, they understand that we're fatigued, they understand that our vision is bad or our hearing is bad because of this MS, and it's not our fault. That just helps our mental health, because we're like, okay, they get it. They get it. They're not judging
yeah,
me,
yeah,
and it's just so much better on us when we get people that
yeah.
that understand it.
Yes, absolutely. And also, just one thing, something about MS is we've all gotten it later in our life, whether it be our 20s or whatever. So we know what it's like to live in a normal body. So we can compare normal to MS. And so we know what normal fatigue feels like, and we know what MS fatigue feels like. And when we say it's completely different, we are coming from a place where we can make the comparison.
Right.
And then when people are like, oh, I'm tired sometimes too, and the sun makes me tired too, and blah, 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 blah. It's different. And we know, we understand the difference. You don't,
Yeah, absolutely.
you know?
And I tell people, as far as the fatigue goes, I try to just relate so that people can understand, where I've been. I'm like, okay, have you ever like gone out for a run and you get that burn in your legs? Okay, I got them on the same page. They understand what I'm talking about, okay, in a normal body. Okay, now take that burn in your legs and magnify it about 20 times, and that is about what my legs feel like.
Yeah.
And a lot of people just look at me like, "Oh my God, really?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's my legs." I try to relate it to how they can vision
Yeah.
what I'm experiencing, and it that's what we want them to do. We want them to understand how we're feeling, and we got to come up with different ways to explain it. But
Yeah. And I was just thinking that's good to find ways that they can understand.
yeah,
They can make that comparison.
yeah. Now, how are some of the ways that you try to get people to understand how you're feeling? Like whether it be the cognitive part or whether it be the physical part. What are some of the ways that you use to try to get people to understand how you're feeling, Trina?
That's a good question.
Uh-oh, I
Um,
stumped you.
Maybe. I guess yeah, I just say that I'm exhausted. I mean, like I'll say
Like how do-
I
how do,
have my
how do
hands
you how do
dead,
you
like
how do you explain the feeling of your body? Like I use, like, you said the firecracker earlier in your legs. And I thought that was such a great analogy. I've never used that before, but that is such a great analogy to what our legs feel like. Like it's almost like a firecracker going off in our legs.
yeah.
So I
John
just
said that.
yeah,
John said that to me in a live, and I was like, "That's it. I've never been able to explain it until this moment, and you have let me know how I feel."
yeah,
Yeah, and that's why our community is so important too, because I feel like I can't even explain how I feel a lot of times. Like my body does. I don't understand.
right.
Like I can't explain it to someone else when I don't even know what's going on.
Yeah. I mean it
But
is.
let
Oh, go ahead.
I just would say let me save my energy and not have to explain how I'm feeling when I don't know how I'm feeling.
Yeah, that's a good point. I
It's
mean,
it's
it,
not normal. It's all I know sometimes.
yeah, I mean, it is such I've even used, like you put your finger in an electric socket and
Yeah,
magnify that by 10.
yeah,
And that feeling is going on in your body 24/7,
yes,
and people don't understand that, and I try to just use like different analogies with people, like this is what it feels like, just so that they can get kind of an understanding of what we go through every day.
yes. Kind of like there's like this electricity going on in your hands and your feet and your legs and your arms.
Yep.
But I think it is. I think that the brain doesn't understand because the nerves are damaged. So the communication is messed up. So you aren't feeling what's normal. You're not feeling normal things.
Right.
So you can't really explain it. You just trust me when I say it's not normal
Yeah.
and
Right.
it's not, doesn't feel good. It hurts.
Right. And then there's the feeling that, you're trying to move a limb, whether it be your leg, foot, arm, whatever, and it just doesn't want to move. And you're like, okay,
Yeah.
in my mind, I'm lifting my leg up, but it's not moving. And
Yes.
your body doesn't want to listen to what your brain is telling it to
Yes.
do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. Couldn't said it better myself. Yeah. Like in my brain, I can stand up and walk across the room,
Yeah.
and I think I'll just, but my body tells me quickly that's not going to happen.
And then the cognitive part, and I can have a normal conversation, like me and you are having a normal conversation, and I can be mid sentence, and the thought just pops out of my head, and people don't
Yeah.
understand that is a
Yeah.
struggle that we go through every day. Our thoughts, our cognitive, I can walk into a room like knowing that I'm going into the room to get something, and I get into the room and I sit there and go, what the hell did I just go into this room for? And I forget. And that's the part, those are parts that you don't see it. You don't see that because this disease is invisible, and people don't understand that cognitive part. Like, we just, our brain function is not normal.
Yes. And how much of our energy we have to use for things like that. Like we have less energy, but then we're having to use our energy, tremendous amounts of energy, just to keep up with what's going on in the day. And even to stand up, I mean, it could take me the amount of energy to stand up as it would someone else to run 10 miles.
And then wait, you know what? I'll
Mhm.
I'll I'll walk into a room, and I'll forget something or whatever, and then I sit there and beat myself up, going, "Oh, you just wasted 10 steps. You just went 10 steps and fatigued yourself, and you forgot what you were coming in here for." And that's part of this game too. Is the cognitive part, the brain function, the body. I mean, and it's an everyday, every minute of the day thing,
Yes, it is. And also just being like mid sentence and forgetting a word and not being able to find that word.
right?
You know,
Yeah. I mean, this
happens
is,
all the time.
yeah, this is just part of this game that, people don't understand it because it's invisible, and they judge us. And that hurts us. They're sitting here calling us lazy. They're calling us, antisocial or whatever. And it it it's a mental battle to us. I mean, that beats us up. We're like, we sit there every day and we're like, we're trying as hard as we can, and we still have people judging us that we're not putting enough effort, according to them. And I'm just like, you have no idea how much effort it takes just to get out of bed every day.
Yeah, totally. Everything takes more energy for sure.
Okay, Trina. So let me ask you this. We've been talking about a lot of the frustrating parts about this disease, but I want to kind of flip it to, how do you keep on fighting every day, with the issues that we have with society and how they view us? How do you just keep on, waking up every day and keep on moving and keep on fighting with this disease?
Okay, well, I think the most important thing is no matter where you are in this disease, life is still beautiful. You're going to have amazing things happen to you. And you just got to look at your life and the things you used to enjoy doing and try to adapt in some way to bring those into your new life. And your life is going to look different. It's going to be different than what everyone else's life is like. But it doesn't mean that it's worse, it's just different. And we do benefit, we do have a lot of reasons that this disease can benefit us. It slows our lives down, puts our life into perspective.
Hmm.
It gives you empathy for other people.
Oh
I mean,
yeah.
there are good things that come from having this disease.
Oh yeah. I
So you just need to focus on the positive.
Yeah, I agree 100% with that. I tell people all the time, um, when I got diagnosed with this disease when I was 27, it like opened my eyes just for chronic disease in general. It made me more empathetic. It made me more aware of people's struggles, whether it be diabetes. I worked with a lot of people that were diabetic, and when their blood sugar would drop low and they would have reactions to that. I mean, I understood that stuff, and I thank MS for that. It made me aware.
Yes.
It made me a better human being, I think, because of that.
Yeah,
Just because it made me,
I think we all feel that way.
yeah, it made me like think about people's problems, and not
Mm.
like, just focus on mine. It's like, okay, other people have issues too. So I thank MS for that.
Yes. I think there are a lot of positives that can come from having MS. And also at the same time, your life still has a lot of beautiful things happening in it. I mean, you have a family, you have friends, you get to see the sunshine every day, I mean,
And you can adapt.
It is what it is.
And you can
Yes, you
adapt.
adapt.
Because
Yes.
we were talking before we started recording. We were asking what we were going to be doing for the weekend, and I love fishing. And I know that there's a
Yeah.
lot of people that love doing fishing, whether it was golfing or whatever. You can still do those things. You just got to figure out
Yes.
how to do them. I'm still fishing, but I got to take precautions into how I get on a boat now. But I
Yeah.
still do the things that I like to do. I used to like to golf a lot. I can't golf anymore, but I play a video game. So, I mean,
Yeah.
it's still, I still do the things that I enjoy doing. I do them differently, though.
Yes. I know your life will change for sure, but it doesn't have to, your quality of life doesn't have to be diminished by any means. And like I love to crochet. I've crocheted my whole life and I lost function in my left arm. So I could not do that anymore. But I found a way that I can still knit things with one arm.
There you go.
So I overcame.
Yeah.
I adapted and I overcame.
And that's part of this journey. You got to figure it out.
Mhm.
Like we're friends with Jeff on TikTok. I mean, the guy's 62 years old and he just figured out that he can sculpt 5 years ago
Yeah.
with MS. I mean, you never know. You gotta go outside the box sometimes with this disease just to try to figure
Yeah.
out things to occupy your mind. You might be an artist. You never know. You got to figure it out though. You got to figure out what occupies your mind, what turns you on, what is going to keep you motivated to keep on fighting.
Yes, and the first thing is get out of the negative headspace because it can consume you.
Yeah.
Yes, it's not fair. Yes, you can't do this anymore. Yes, all these things are true, and you just have to move on.
So how do you get out of the negative, Trina? Because I know as long as you've been battling this disease, and as long as I've been battling this disease, and I'm not going to sit here and lie, there are negative parts to this disease. There's negative parts that bring you down mentally. What do you do to when that stuff happens to you? What are the tools that you use to fight that? To the mental part of it.
Well, first of all, I'm a Christian. I believe in God, and there's a lot of comfort in that comes from God, and also I mean, the Bible is very says many, many times that you will suffer. So I don't think I'm above suffering, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well.
Like we need to just. I mean, I guess that's how I deal,
Yeah.
and also I just don't let myself go into those negative places. I immediately, if it's a negative thought, I fight it with a positive thought.
Yeah. And that's not an easy thing to do. And by all means, I know that I have gone into some very deep, dark places with this disease, and I want people to understand that you're not abnormal if that happens to you. Um, but I think you need to address it. You need to get help. You need to talk to a
Yes,
counselor. I was anti, counselor when I was early in this disease. I fought it. I did the guy macho thing. I'm bigger, badder than that. But I learned real quick when I had to go out on disability and I lost the ability to work that I needed help. I needed to talk to somebody. I needed medication to help the depression. And the sooner you could recognize that with this disease, I think the better you are, because if you don't treat the mental part of it, it's going to be a hard battle.
yeah, yes, and I think that's normal. I
Yeah.
think the normal reaction to this is to go really dark and be really frustrated,
Yep.
and you have to train your brain to think differently.
Yep. Absolutely. Like I said, Trina, I'm not going to lie. 27 years with this, and when I went out on disability, I didn't want to be around. I literally I
Mhm.
thought about it, and it is not uncommon. And I know a lot of people they get into that depression with this disease, and it is a hard battle. But you got to find a way out of it. You got to keep on there. You got a reason to live. If you have kids, you got kids. If you got a pet, you got to fight for the pet. If you got a parents, you fight for your parents. You got to find some reason to get up every day and fight.
And you've got to fight for yourself too. You
Absolutely.
have to make yourself a priority
Absolutely.
as well as everything else. And also, Brian, I just want to say, look, you got, you had to go on disability. You can't work anymore. But look at what that brought you, this podcast.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
you look at how you're blessing so many people. And if you're still working, this probably never would have happened. So,
Yeah, I look at the positives all the time. I've met so many people since I started doing this podcast. I mean, literally 6 months ago, or even 9 months ago, I probably knew 5 or 10 people that had MS in 27 years, and now I'm probably friends with more than 200 people that have MS, and it's all because of doing this podcast and finding the community on TikTok and on Facebook, finding people that understand that you
yes.
that get what you're going through, and that is such
You
a
don't even have to explain it.
you don't. I mean, we get there, we get on TikTok lives, and we're just sitting there talking, and it's somebody that we don't even know. They come in brand new to the live, and they have MS, and we just connect because we get each other, we understand each other,
Yes.
and that is so important for the mental health.
Yes, I agree. And also, MS is very isolating and it's very lonely. And just being able to come together like that is so beneficial.
Absolutely. Trina, if there is one more thing that you wanted to tell anybody that is listening to your story and just to keep on fighting this disease, what would your message be to them?
Well, I think look back at what you miss about your past life and find ways to bring that into your new world. You'll find a way. If you can't figure it out, I'm sure someone else has been in that same situation. It's been like, oh, yeah, you can still do that. You just have to do it this way. And I think and you can be down and you can cry, and it's very hard, but try to stay as positive as you possibly can because your life is different, but it does not have to be worse. It's just different.
I love it. I love it, Trina. You're right. And you are the same person. I tell people all the
Yeah.
time, I'm the same person that played in 3 Rose Bowls and a Gator Bowl back in the 90s.
Yeah.
That is never going to change. MS is never going to take that away from me. You're the same person you were before your MS. MS can never take your accomplishments away, and you can still um, create so many more accomplishments even with this disease. You can't quit, and you just got to figure it out.
You have to adapt and overcome
Absolutely.
every day,
Absolutely.
sometimes several times a day. But
Absolutely, Trina. Trina, man, I love talking to you. You are just such an awesome person. If anybody wants to follow you on TikTok, how would they look you up? Are you Trina Bear?
I'm just Trina. I did take out my last name.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
I'll put that in the
Trina and a heart and a ribbon.
Okay, I'll put that in the description. If you want to follow
Okay.
Trina on TikTok, she's just an awesome lady to talk to. If you're in this journey and just starting it out, she's an awesome person to connect with and talk with. She's got so much knowledge about this disease, and she is always willing to help. And I really appreciate you coming on, Trina, with me again. I will have you on anytime you want to come back on and talk about this disease just to help spread awareness. You are an awesome lady, and I really appreciate you.
Yes, and thank you so much for having me again. I just want to say that you are not alone in this disease. And if you need to feel like you have more support, there's so many people out there that will be more than willing to help you, but you're not alone.
No, you're not.
There's millions of us in this country right now dealing with this.
Yep.
So don't let yourself feel like you're alone.
Nope. You're not alone. You can find us. We're out there. We'll help you. We'll support you. If you want to follow me on TikTok, you can find me, MS Michigan Man 64. You can find me on Instagram, MS Michigan Man 64. And you can also find me on Facebook, Brian Wallace out of, geez, oh man, where do I live? Brunswick, Ohio. All right. This is the MS Michigan Man 64. I am out.